What's your thoughts? Like, what's happened in this year?
Well, things did unfold as we expected in the last time we talked, but it happened a little bit later than we expected. So if we step back and go back to 2017, the Canadian market was expanding rapidly. And my biggest concern back then was runaway home prices. We had parts of the GTA, parts of the lower mainland of BC, where home prices were escalating on an annual basis in that 25% a year basis.
Scary, very scary.
Terrifying,
right.
Terrifying. West Vancouver.
Well, it creates that instability in that everybody's sitting on their tippy toes. Do I do it? If I don't do it, what price do I pay?
Yep.
And if I did
absolutely.
do it, was it a mistake?
Gone up too fast.
Well, and what clients don't realize, I'd have the media ask me questions in times like that, and they say, well, you must be happy. And I go, you know what?
Yes.
I say, my people are no different than any other fee-for-service professional. They're not selling houses, they're selling their time.
Right.
And all they have is their time. So imagine how much their costs escalate when they have to go through 14 offers to actually find someone a home. Imagine how much their costs escalate when there are 50 hungry realtors looking for every listing. So unbalanced markets like that, whether they're super good or super slow, are really hard on our industry.
For sure.
Of course, we step up and we do the job for our consumer clients, and you know, they expect us to adjust to whatever market.
Right.
And that's why you guys are so successful. Boom markets, down markets, you find a way to get the job done for your clients. But the out of control, great markets are not great for the real estate industry.
Couldn't agree with more.
Anyway, so we had that. Then the government intervention started. And they were worried about, the policymakers worried about the same sort of things we were worried about, increasing debt levels, runaway home prices. So we had the Fair Housing Plan in Ontario, followed by the federal mortgage stress test. Boom, boom, and across the country, similar sort of intervention. And bam, these runaway home prices just fell off, things fell off a cliff, right? Mm-hmm. So we had dramatic, things fell off a cliff in volume terms.
Yes.
And this is really important
Yes.
for your listeners, because home prices did not decline other than a tiny little smidgen.
And in very measured micro markets to that.
Right, exactly. Very good point. So I think this speaks to the strength of the Canadian economy and the strength of Canadian housing stock. We did see double-digit, big declines in the number of homes trading hands. So people just stepped out of the market. They were
scared.
Either they couldn't get a mortgage,
right,
or they were scared of what was happening. Exactly. So 2018, tough year. 2019, we said, by the spring of 2019, people should be adjusting. Mm-hmm. It really took until May, June.
Yeah.
But by then, three things were happening, right? They were looking in different neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. They were looking for smaller homes. I mean, it really was smaller. You could say a different quality home, whatever, but really the big thing is if they're looking for a house of this size, right, they downsize their expectations. And the third one is they saved some more money or found another source of down payment.
And maybe Bank of Mom and Dad helped a little bit, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So they found the money. So, focus on the third and fourth quarter of 2019. He's back.
Right.
And that's exactly what we're seeing. This last month in the GTA, sales were up 14%. The month before, sales were up 14%. This is year over year.
And we were talking about sales volume.
Sales volume.
Sales volume.
Yep.
So,
sales
the
prices,
number of homes that are changing hands were up 15% year over year, month after month.
Right.
That's massive.
It's massive. A big change. And in the heart, just to give people an idea, because Toronto's bigger, Toronto's more stable, but Vancouver really shows you what's happening in terms of the extremes. Mm-hmm. Sales are up 55% in Vancouver. Prices are still soft, but they were so bad, they were off like 2/3, 65%. So even though they're up 55%, they're still not back to normal. So it's Toronto doesn't have those huge swings that Vancouver does. It's
Right.
a much more balanced economy, larger, and that sort of thing.
But I do think world economics and world politics play such a bigger factor in Vancouver. They're so connected to the Asian market. The
Very
Asian
true.
markets are so volatile, whether it's the Chinese economy, politics in Hong Kong, whatever the case may be. Vancouver is just so tied
Yep.
to Asia and the Asian markets, which is why they get affected so quickly
Yep.
and to such dramatic
Yeah.
shifts in the market.
And affordability is so much more strained.
'Cause of
So
scarcity.
Yeah, well, and prices are 50% higher than Toronto. Right across. If you go burbs, you go downtown, you go luxury, condos, detached, 50% higher. So it means affordability is that much more strained. You know,
Right.
you look at the percentage of income
Yep.
that it takes to carry a mortgage, and you know, people have to stretch to own a home in the GTA.
Right.
But it's completely possible, and we know that because, well, hell, we sell a lot of homes every year, right?
Well, I think right now at the end of November, start of December, we finished off with about 83,000, and I think it's safe to say we'll see another 4,000 to 5,000 maybe for the month of December.
Yep.
So we'll end up in that range of about 87,000
Yep.
homes exchanging hands. I wanted to speak a little bit about when you said the prices kind of came back and volume came back
Yes.
as well, because we get a lot of questions like, why is it in Canada people are wanting to keep, like, how come values continue to
Grow.
rise? And I think what a lot of our listeners are starting to get, hopefully by listening to podcasts and getting more education, is the fact that our immigration, like, we have a lot of people coming into the country, and we see that spread out right across Canada. It's not only in Toronto. Obviously, we see about 150,000 here. Have you noticed that it always kind of comes down to supply and demand, Phil, like in terms of numbers?
Yeah. So if you look at, you know, even a step further back, and you look at the big long-term trends, we've got things working in Canada's favor right now. So we are the fastest growing nation, developed nation in the world in population terms. Moved ahead of Australia, and quite a bit faster growth than America.
And that's by population, right?
By population.
Okay.
And yet we only add about 1% a year in immigration. So it's not like, you know, we're adding 10% or 50%. It's 1%.
It's not a big
so
number at
that
all.
tiny little addition is enough to keep our economy growing. The other thing that's happening in the housing market that's quite fascinating is we have this big cohort, the biggest group of humans ever in North America, the millennials, who are rolling well into home ownership. Most of them now. We're into the 2/3 range that will own a
Of the
home,
generation.
own a home. And these are people up to, from first-time home buyers up to about 37 now. So it's
Okay.
kind of interesting when you think our millennials are 37.
Right.
Wow, where did the time go?
Where did the time go?
So
Yeah.
what does that mean, though, when you step back and you think about it? Millennials are, a lot of them, and the peak population was born in 1990.
Okay.
So that means they're 28, 29, I guess 29 now.
Okay.
So those people may have bought their first home 4 years ago, 3 years ago, or they may be just getting into it now.
Right.
But the ones that are a little bit older than that in millennials, say those 33, 35-year-olds, could be onto their second child.
Right.
And guess what? We're finding they're interested in family homes to the same extent their parents were. And at the same time that their parents are finally exiting now we're talking about the baby boomers,
yeah.
exiting the big family homes, and they're interested in condos.
Isn't that something?
So we have
Isn't that
this
something?
magic hand, and we're seeing a opinion. We've had a condo decade in
Right,
Canada. If you
for
look
sure.
at where the building has been, where the interests have been, and where prices. If you go back, you know, a little plug for the data and reports and insight available on LePage.ca. You go into the media center, you'll see all these studies on the way demographics and housing types have changed over time. And there's some fascinating work there on demographics and condominiums and preference and this sort of thing. And so what we're seeing now is a subtle shift back to balance, where there's as much interest in detached homes as there are in condos, as these people look for that white picket fence when the second kid comes along.
I find that interesting too, because I've actually believed that there's going to be there was less people in that age group that are interested in the white picket fence,
agreed.
because that age group generally doesn't have the time to shovel the snow.
Right.
Cut the grass.
Right.
So it's interesting to see.
Dual income homes.
Well, dual income homes and just lifestyle, right? They're looking a little bit more for lifestyle than anything
Well,
else.
people are
where they
also
want the
married
condos,
much
right?
later.
Yes.
They're having children later.
And they're having less children.
They're having less children.
Yet
right?
they're interestingly
Right.
buying houses earlier.
Yes.
So one of the fascinating things, if you look back over the last 15 years, the single fastest growing cohort was a single female.
Right.
So, you go back to the baby boomers or the traditionals before that. Women didn't buy homes on their own, right? They waited till they got married,
For sure.
and then they bought a house or they rented.
Yep.
With our millennials and the Gen Xers before them,
Right.
they said, "No, I'm not waiting around for some dude to show up."
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you're right, they have careers, they have school, all this sort of stuff, putting off having kids, but they've got a career and they got money,
And they saved money.
and they know.
No, but Canada, guys, is
That
a progressive
it's
country.
for sure.
It's an empowering country.
Yeah.
Yes.
So again, like Royal LePage is. If you look around us, we're
Yeah.
surrounded by superstars in this business.
Right.
It's mostly women.
Yes, it's so
Like,
true.
it's no
So
joke.
true.
Yeah.
So like to me, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
I grew up with very powerful women around me.
Me too.
I work with powerful
Yeah.
women. Like we have our VP inside our own organization. Laura is a complete powerhouse.
yeah.
So this doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
And it's actually refreshing
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah.
So you're right. They did, and we saw this shift socially towards condos. Because it used to be if you lived in, quote unquote, an apartment,
Right.
you're really you hadn't made it yet.
Yes.
You had to wait till you got the picket fence. And that changed, of course.
And a
when-
detached home at that. If you had
Right.
a semi, you still didn't
No,
make
you
it,
didn't-
right?
hadn't made it
You
yet.
still haven't made it yet.
You haven't made it.
But we weren't selling, 8-figure condominiums back in those days, right?
So true.
There was no such thing.
No such thing.
So we've joined the big cities in the
Right.
world. The Bombays, the Manhattans,
Yes.
the great big cities with
Yes.
expensive condominiums. But we still have this desire to raise kids with some space. And so we're seeing this subtle shift. At the same time, we're seeing baby boomers move out of high maintenance properties. They're not a little bit of another interesting trend there. Our research shows the majority of baby boomers are not going to downsize.
Okay.
So downsizing is the wrong word. The number is somewhere between 55 and 60. I can't remember, but
it's fine.
on the
Yeah.
Royal LePage Media
Yeah.
Center, the study's there, and it shows the majority of baby boomers, their next property is going to be the same size or larger. Some of them
Interesting.
are actually even upsizing, but because they have the money,
Right.
And maybe their knees are bad, and they're not going to spend it on skiing or
Skiing.
something.
I was gonna say, they don't need a chalet or whatever. Yeah,
but they can
for
spend
sure.
it on an expensive condo.
100%.
So there's been a rise in interest in larger, call it luxury condominiums, luxury townhouses, managed services in the place they live, but they want the space. And guess what? There's someone knocking on their door who wants their property, and that's the family that just had their second kid. So it's a virtuous cycle. And back to this population thing we talked about earlier, that 1% of immigrants we bring in each year, plus the baby boomers, plus the millennials, is enough to put tremendous pressure on our housing stock. And I said this during the election campaign. There's so much attention to housing. I spent a lot of time talking about it to the media across the country. This is not something that's going away. Every municipal election, every provincial election, every federal election, who knows how often we'll have those. Minority governments.
Give it another 18 months. We're up.
I was going to say 2 years, but 18 months is a good
There you
answer.
go. The housing is going to be front and center, and people are finally getting it through their heads. As policymakers that demand ham-fisted policy that just hammers demand. All it does is delay it a little bit.
Yep, a little Band-Aid.
Right. It's like putting up a straw fence when you've got the army at the gates, right? You put up the straw, and they're going to push it over. And then what's happening? They've all backed up, and they're going to overwhelm you. And that's when you get this spiky prices. You don't get even price growth. So you can't control prices with demand side policy, but you can make it easier for developers to get shovels in the ground.
Yeah.
You can make it more affordable, and we could build the housing that our people need, because they need a roof over their head. Whether it's rent or buy, they need that roof.